Hi guys, welcome back. And this is the third session of our Selenium with Java from Basic to Advanced series. And in this video and starting this particular video, we are going to focus too much on the core Java concept because as you know, we saw in our last video while we were doing the installation and also writing a simple code by creating a project, we saw there were so many concepts required for us to understand how the Java works. And we also saw while we created a method called println, there were different types of data types were coming up. And I told you that we are going to be covered them up while we talk about them in the next lecture. So this is the lecture that we are going to be talking about them all. And we'll see how we can understand or try to understand them in much simpler fashion. So I'll try to simplify that as much as possible, but you will probably have more question on it. So please go ahead and ask them in the chat so that we can discuss about it. Well, as that said, we are going to see how we can work with variables in Java in this particular session. So before we get into testing tools like Selenium or Playwright, for instance, we need to have a solid understanding of the programming language because that is like a tool for us to drive these testing tools. So make sure that every single time while we try to use those tools, we also have to have some understanding of programming in a very, very solid, concrete fashion. So that's the reason why I insist you to please learn Java before we get into the testing tool. That's why we're not going to talk about Selenium at all for until few more lectures. We are going to start Selenium itself later on, but for now, we are going to focus too much on the programming side. But as that said, we'll see what is this variable. So if you have already heard about variables, you probably know what it is. But if you are kind of new to programming language and if you're kind of new to the entire automation testing and the whole idea of Java itself, then you may not exactly know what variable is. If you already know about it, this video is going to be like a recap. If not, we'll try to simplify it as much as possible for you if you're going to be learning it for the first time. Well, variable, I always see them like a jar or a container to store the data in it. So as you can see over here, I have a variable which is going to store the value as 10. So you can see that this is container, which is like a box, which is going to store the value 10 inside this particular container. And this int, don't worry about it for now. We are going to talk about the data type soon. But you can see that this jar can just hold a value 10 inside it. So if you try to put some other value in this particular jar, maybe this jar won't fit those value in it. It's pretty much like the compatibility of the jar to store that value or hold that value for you. That is what this whole variable is all about. But you may have a situation that you may need to store multiple different types of data in that jar. So that jar won't be compatible to store all the value for you. And that's why there are going to be even more jars available for you, something like this, as you can see over here. And these are the different types of variables or data types which is available in Java for you. As you can see over here, we have this jar, like integer jar that we saw before. It is storing the value as 10 over here. And there is another jar, you see there is a different color. It is a Boolean jar, which means it only stores certain specific types of value, which is like true or false for you. So it won't store the 10 in that particular jar because this jar won't fit that value for you. Similarly, the double is a different jar altogether. It will try to just store a value something like 20.02, something like that. It won't try to store a true value or 10 inside it. It will just say, okay, I'm not compatible with this kind of value that you're trying to throw at me. That's how this particular jar is going to work. Similarly, there is a character jar which is just going to store one value, and there is a float jar which is going to just store this value, and long jar which is going to store only this value. So this is how things are really happening in Java. So these different types of variables that you are seeing over here are otherwise called as data types in Java, and these data types are primitive types as you have seen so far. So there are even more types available which I have not listed here, like byte and short, something like that. But at least for high level, the one that you will be using most of the time while writing the Selenium code in automation testing, you will be using these types, these primitive types. So now you may ask, like, Karthik, what is this primitive data types in Java? Well, primitive types in Java are basically like the most basic types which are available in Java, and there are totally 8 primitive types available. And these primitive types are like the name, like int or bool or double that you are seeing over here. The names are also reserved keyword by Java. So as you remember, I was telling you, like, there is a name called as package, which was coming up as a purple color in our last video. I was telling you that's the reserved keyword, at least for that particular class file. So it's similarly over here in this particular data types, as you see, the int, bool, double, character, float, and long, these are all reserved keywords, and you can't use this name if you don't put them in double quotes like a string value. If you try to put it like a type, if you try to create it, these are primitive types and these are reserved keywords, so you can't use these names for your own custom types. So I mean, I will talk about custom types in our non-primitive data types pretty soon, but at least for now you will see that these are the different types of data types available in Java, which is going to store the values for you in these containers. So hope you got the idea a bit. I mean, while you start writing the code, you'll understand even further, but just remember that in Java we have got 8 primitive types, and some of the most commonly used types are the one that I have listed over here, and you will be ending up using any of these most of the time. So these are called as primitive data types. These are reserved types keywords, and you can't use this name elsewhere in your code. That's how it works. And the most important thing, while I also tell you that this int type is going to store only these value, bool type is going to store only this value, is that because these containers can only hold certain amount of data in it. So for example, if you take the int, it is going to store the integer value like 1, 2, 3 until 2 power 32. And similarly, Boolean is going to just store the true and false value. And similarly, double is going to store only the decimal value of 2 digit after the number. That's how it's going to store. Similarly, character is going to store only one value, and float is going to store any value ending with F, and long is going to do the exact same thing. So like these are the different types of types which is being supported by Java, and these data types are something which is going to help you to do certain operation, and I will tell you what they are. So hopefully you got the idea how the data type works. The opposite of this data type is going to be non-primitive data types, right? So this non-primitive types are also classified as 4 of them. One is the string, another one is arrays, and there is the classes, and then interfaces. So these are the most basic non-primitive types. So string, you may be using, I think in most of your Selenium code, you'll be just using string most of the time. And you'll be using classes almost all the time. And you'll be using arrays. I think you'll be using quite a lot as well. And there is something called as collection that you'll be using. And then we also have got interfaces, which you will be using while using Selenium most of the time. So string, the example over here, as you can see, is that you can just put double quotes and put any value inside the string. It's just going to store those values for you over here. So this is a non-primitive data type. And there is an array type which is going to store arrays of value. So it can be a again, this array can just not be like an integer array. It can be a string array. It can be different types of array. It can also be like an array with custom types like classes, for instance. I mean, we'll be talking about this non-primitive types exclusively as separate videos, like arrays separately, classes separately, and we'll also talk about interfaces. But at least these are the high-level picture for you to understand what these non-primitive types are. And the classes is the one, you remember the class that I created last time, the first program, if you remember, that was actually a class file. And that class, you can create multiple different class files as well. And these classes fits into this non-primitive type category. So the reason why these are non-primitive type is because these types are actually created, like custom created by you. And also these are reference types as well. So what is this reference types means? I mean, we talk about that while we start adding references to a class files or something like that, but at least you have got the idea what these types are. I mean, you cannot take a reference for the primitive types, but you can create a reference for a non-primitive types. Like you can create like a new Chrome driver is how you create a reference for the Chrome driver class. So the new is a reserved keyword in Java, which will help you create a new object of this class Chrome driver. And similarly, you can create an reference for the interfaces, arrays, and strings, something like that. So I hope you got the idea of how non-primitive types works. So let's work into this primitive types as much as possible so that you can get comfortable like how you can write primitive type yourself and then start writing the code. So for doing that, I'm going to jump to our Windows machine over here and I'm going to start writing the code. So you remember last time while we were trying to print the value, we actually printed a string value, hello Java test engineer. So this is in double quotes, meaning it's a string type. And that's what I have mentioned in the slide over here. As you can see, this string container is holding the value in double quotes of string. So anything just goes into double quotes, it is a string type. And anything that goes in a single quote is a character. So we can see how that actually works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this code and I'm going to create a string variable just to give you an idea of how that works. I'm going to create a string. So this is how I create a string type. And I'm going to say message is equal to, and then I'm going to paste the value over here, something like this. And the moment I actually do this one, I'm actually getting an scrolly line error message over here. And it says that string cannot be resolved to a type. You may be wondering, Karthik, what is wrong with this string? Because I thought it's a string and it just works fine. And why is it not really? You can see that once I hover near the string error message, the IDE is giving me quite a lot of resolutions. Like it says me that create a class as string, like small s string, or create a record as string and change to capital S, which is from the java.lang package. So what does that mean? Basically, there is no type called string in S small letter in Java. There is only a string with capital S as string in Java. So now that this error message that you are getting, the scrolly line, is gone. So that is how it actually works. And this is coming from java.lang.string package. So hope you got the idea. I mean, we talk about the string exclusively, but for now, this is how you define the variables. And now over here, I'm just going to say message. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm going to print this message in this system.out.print over here. And you see that the IDE is very intelligent enough to tell me that this is a string which is tried to be printed over here. And now if I try to run the code, you will notice that it is just going to print the exact same value which we were printing before. So that's how you print a string. Now get back to the primitive types. Let's not talk about the non-primitive types yet. Let's talk about some of the most commonly used primitive types. Let's say integer. I mean, even before I go to integer, you remember there is something called as byte, I told you. So there is a type called a byte as well. And this is a reserved keyword. So that's why you get this color, like purple color. And I'm going to say byte as salary in peanuts. So the reason why I say this is because for bytes, you can only store a value of just 1 byte. So if you just put like 100, it works. But if I increase my salary to 1,000, it is not. You see that there is a scroll line there. And if I just go nearby and it tells me that you can either convert this byte to an integer because the byte can only hold a value of maximum of 100. I mean, you can't even make something like 200 over here. You get this error. So the maximum, the byte in computer it's going to store the value is going to be just 100. That's how it is going to be storing, right? And now if I want to print this value, I can just say salary in peanut, salary in peanuts, something like that. And if I try to save and run this code, you will see that I'm printing the value 100 in here. So it is printed for me. And if I want to increase my salary to, let's say, 1,000, that's what your program is in your real world scenario. Let's say a developer has defined the salary field to byte type. And if your client requirement is that, hey, we wanted to increase the salary of the customer, of our employees, but your system is only allowing us maximum of $100 or 100 rupees, then your employees is going to be screaming like anything, right? Like, so you have to fix this issue. So how do you fix this issue? Increase it to integer. So this integer type can really help you do that. So what you have to do, once you make this change to an integer type, now you can actually increase the salary all the way until here. So now if you increase beyond certain value, let's say this one, you see that we are getting an exception over here. So the maximum is 2 power 31 that you can actually store on an integer type. So you cannot store beyond that. So you see that that's throwing us an error. So you can only store until this much value. So now, but still the salary is heavy over here. Your employees should be very happy, and it just works. And similarly, there is something called as a long type. I mean, it can hold beyond this value, but you can put an L there, which means it can just hold quite a heavy amount of value beyond that. So that's how the long actually works for you over here. You see that. So what does that really means is that once you put L there, you can also put even further values like 0000, not more than that really. And then this is just going to work because this is a long type and it can hold quite a lot of storage in there. So that is how the long really works. And I also told you there is something called as a Boolean type. So I can also say that, are you a happy student or a sad student? So the only answer that you have got is yes or no, like true or false, right? So you can just say Boolean. So you just say like this Boolean over here and just say happy index over here. So if I say happy index as true like this, then it is just gonna print true for you. So now I can just say put the happy index, and then if I try to run this code, let me always save this before launching it. There we go, and it's gonna print me true. And if I just say the happy index as false, which means it's gonna print false value for me. So this type, as I told you on the container example, this is basically going to be just holding the true or false value for us. And similarly, there is also something called as a character type. So for instance, if I just say character, so you saw this, there is a string in double quotes, you put quite a lot of value. But if I say anything as character, and then I'm gonna say, are you happy, yes or no? You have to say, then are you happy? And if you say yes in single quote, it is not going to work really. You just have to say Y or N. You shouldn't be putting more value in that. So if you say yes like that, this code is not going to be working for you. You just have to say Y or N. That's the maximum you can say, because that is what the storage capacity of a character. And you can just say, are you happy? And I'm going to run this code. It's going to be printing Y for you. Or you can just say N, but it doesn't matter. You can also say Z if you wanted to, but it should be always one value. That is what is character. So, and it is also stored the value in a single quote. So you can't put a double quotes there. And if you say double quotes, you see that there is a scroll line there. So you're going to get an error because you have to convert that to a string type. I mean, you can change it to a string type by just saying string like this, but that's not the idea that we're talking about over here. So it's just about the character, right? So that's how it works. So I hope you got the idea about the primitive types. So primitive types are the reserved keyword types, and these are created by the Java library itself. These are the types that you have not created, but these are types which are created by the Java library and the Java guys itself, and you can't really extend this type by your own custom types. You can only use these types within your custom type, and these are reserved types provided by Java for you to work with. And these are the types which is going to make more sense while you start to work around in the code. But yeah, that's how it's going to be. And I'm also going to do one more thing. I'm also going to cover the non-primitive string type in here, because a string type is going to be helpful for you to understand how it actually works as well. So I'm going to just say string of a name as execute automation, and I can also give a space here like this, execute automation limited. And once I give this is a string type of name over there. Now with this name variable, I can do quite a lot of different operations. So for instance, with this are you happy, if I try to put a dot after this are you happy, and if I hit control space, you see that I'm not getting any proposals or additional methods which is available for this type, like the character type over here. So you can't really do anything out for that. Similarly, for the Boolean type, let's say I'm going to say happy index, and if I hit a dot and if I do control space to get some more methods for that particular type, you won't get any of the method. So in Java, you can also do this. So every single time while you try to know what is the next method available after this out, you can just do control space. You see that you get some detail about this particular method, not detail alone, but you also get other different types of method with the similar namings that you can search for. That's exactly what I'm trying to do over here as well. So I am trying to see if I get any other supporting methods by Java for these types. Well, you can see that for character, we don't really have any method for supporting type for this. But for string type, the non-primitive type, if I create name and if I hit dot, you see that we are going to get quite a lot of methods over there. I'm going to stop from this for this lecture. The reason why is because now it's getting confusion. How is just for the string type, the non-primitive type, we're getting so many different methods once I hit dot, but why I did not get while I say salary in peanuts dot, there is no control space, there is no method coming up. Similarly for Boolean, which is the happy index, if I hit dot and if I do control space, I don't get any methods. Why I'm not getting any methods for these, and why do I get the method for the string, let's say name, and if I hit dot, why am I getting all of these things? That's why I told you that these name are non-primitive types and these are reference types, which means you can create some methods for this string type. We are going to talk about that even further in our next lecture, but at least for now, you have got some idea about variables and how you use the variable inside the system.println. And you also see how we assigned the value for these variables by defining a type and then printing the value over here. Starting our next lecture, we will see how we can use the string type and how we can use different kinds of operations in the string type in Java. Thank you.